I'm Ken, a remote software engineer living with my family in Changsha, Hunan, Central China. After the recent videos, I've noticed how deeply housing resonates with so many of you. Thank you for your thoughtful comments. Some were surprised by how affordable housing looks in Changsha. Others rightly pointed out that home prices here or anywhere feel impossible for ordinary families. For us, buying a home wasn't easy either. In this video, I'm walking you through exactly how we got here, years of saving, tough choices, and small steps, until we finally owned a place that's enough for our family of four. If you value honest real-life stories from China, the kind that go beyond the headlines and show life as it really is, please consider subscribing. I'll keep sharing our story exactly as it is. As I have mentioned before, I come from a rural village. I still clearly remember my parents selling vegetables to gather my tuition fees, even in the dead of winter, when it was freezing cold. And in summer, they would haul freshly harvested tobacco leaves into the curing barns, small, tightly sealed sheds heated from below by burning coal. They would hang the leaves inside to dry, then pour them out once cured. Those barns were sweltering, far hotter than the already scorching outdoors, and completely unventilated. My parents would come out drenched in sweat, time after time. Those days of poverty are etched in my memory. In China, most people share this background. Even if you or your parents weren't farmers, your grandparents or great grandparents very likely were. With my parents' difficult support, I graduated with a college degree in 2007 and started working that same year. I worked hard to secure an internship at a small company and managed to stay on. My first salary was 1,500 RMB per month. No meals, no housing, no benefits. But it was in my field, computer software engineering, so I could gain experience. I stayed in this industry, changing jobs but never switching fields or roles, and my income kept rising. Until in 2011, I met my wife and we got married in 2012. At the beginning, we had almost nothing, no house, no car. Our first child was born in 2012. I clearly remember one morning, my wife called me from my hometown, where she was staying with my parents while I was still in Guangzhou. She said she might be going into labor soon, but I wasn't sure exactly when. She wanted me to come back quickly, but also worried that if I took leave immediately and the baby didn't arrive right away, I would waste vacation days and affect my work. But I knew this couldn't wait. I immediately asked for leave and I bought a high-speed train ticket that same day. The trip from Guangzhou to Changsha takes about 2.5 hours by high-speed train. But with travel to and from stations and transfers, it took me nearly 7 hours. I arrived at our hometown village around 10:30 p.m. and saw my wife and parents. The next morning, we went to the hospital for a checkup. The doctor confirmed she met the conditions for a C-section, and the procedure was done that day. Then I became a father for the first time. Having a son brought joy, but it also makes us urgently desire a stable home in the city. For the first 2 years after his birth, we rented in Guangzhou. The economy was growing fast, and the rent prices rose every year. Landlords were often unfriendly, so we moved several times. We didn't dare buy decent furniture. In China, compared to renting, buying a home is often seen as the more realistic long-term choice. Because I was always busy with work, my wife and our son didn't always live with me. Instead, she stayed with my parents in our hometown to raise our child. So we were constantly traveling back and forth. Either I'd go home or she would bring our son to Guangzhou. We initially looked at houses in Guangzhou. I remember the last time I viewed a property there was in 2012. In Zhengcheng, there was a fully renovated apartment priced at 8,600 RMB per square meter. My pre-tax salary was 8,000 RMB. Even with a 30% down payment, I was still short by over 100,000 RMB. Considering the monthly mortgage, the pressure would have been enormous. and commuting would have been inconvenient. When buying a home, if you choose something close to work, it's convenient but expensive. If you go farther out, you endure long commutes. I completely understand this struggle. Interestingly, when I finally gathered the courage to go back and ask about that apartment, the salesperson told me it was already sold out. Yes, that's how crazy it was back then. At the time, the housing market was as bustling as the morning vegetable market. Those with money bought apartments as casually as they would pick up a bunch of greens. No hesitation, no stress. But for ordinary families like ours, every viewing felt urgent, afraid we wouldn't find something suitable, and even more terrified that if we didn't act now, we would never afford one later. That led to our later decision. At the time, housing prices in Changsha were also rising, but much more gently. Compared to our income, buying a home there was far less stressful. We thought, let's buy one now, at least we'll have a place to live, and our child will have school enrollment secured. Later, when the time was right, we could consider moving our jobs to Changsha. So in 2013, we bought our first apartment, 97 square meters, at 5,600 RMB per square meter. The down payment was 200,000 RMB, and the monthly mortgage was around 2,500 RMB, still manageable at the time. We borrowed part of the down payment from our parents and siblings. It was an off-plan property. We bought it in October 2013, but I didn't receive the keys until late 2014. The apartment was unfinished, bare concrete, which was very common then, so we needed to budget for renovation, which required a significant additional sum. In 2015, we completed both renovation and appliance purchases for about 130,000 RMB, a fairly simple setup. Also in 2015, an opportunity arose. A company in Changsha offered me a role that involved business trips to Denmark. Eager to return to Changsha and see the world, I didn't hesitate. I left my decent job in Guangzhou, where I was earning around 12,000 RMB per month before tax, and moved back. It was a tough choice. My base salary dropped to about 70% of my Guangzhou income, down to 8,500 RMB per month. Fortunately, the Denmark trips came with allowances, so my overall take-home pay didn't fall as dramatically as the base salary suggested. During those trips, I also picked up some side gigs as a personal shopper, buying Danish goods for clients back in China. Some were friends, others were strangers. In early 2015, I borrowed 60,000 RMB from my older brother for renovation, but by the end of 2015, I had paid him back in full. The Denmark assignment was temporary, and eventually I settled permanently in Changsha, closer to my wife, my children, my parents, and my extended family. This was already close to the life I live today, though back then, things were much harder. Changsha, as a provincial capital, has long had the lowest housing prices among all provincial capitals in China. This is a key reason it attracts young people and why it's often ranked as one of China's happiest cities. But on the flip side, my income in Changsha was generally lower than in Guangzhou, and more importantly, far less stable. A second tier city simply can't offer the same career consistency as a first tier one. There were moments I genuinely doubted whether leaving Guangzhou had been the right choice. That said, 2016 turned out to be a bit of a turning point. After switching jobs that year, my salary improved, and I was still doing some personal shopping for friends and contacts from my earlier time in Denmark. For a short while, things felt more stable, and we even managed to buy our first car, a simple local model, nothing fancy, costing just over 100,000 RMB. By then, we'd already bought our home. In many ways, we'd just checked off two big items on what felt like life's default to-do list: own a home, own a car. It wasn't about status, it was just what you are supposed to do. But once both were done, I realized something unsettling. My daily life hadn't really changed. The worries were still there. The joy I'd imagined, nowhere to be found. And in that quiet moment after completing the tasks, I felt strangely empty, not because I'd failed, but because I didn't know what came next. In 2017, our second child was born. Because I felt guilty about missing so much of our first son's early years, I barely saw him before age 3. I actually quit my job for 3 months to care for our newborn and support my wife during her recovery. During that time, I cooked meals for the family, fed the baby, changed the diapers, did everything I could. That break made me rethink life. What are we really living for? In the middle of that time, I spent half a month volunteering as a math tutor in a mountain village in Guizhou, helping fourth grade students work through math problems during their class practice sessions. When I left, the class average had risen by 3 points, not much, but enough to feel like I'd touched something real. My wife had taken our baby to stay with her brother in Guizhou while I volunteered. Right after the program ended, I went to their home and reunited with them. That moment, coming back to my family, made everything feel worthwhile. Looking back, I believe it was one of the most meaningful decisions I've ever made. In 2018, I joined a local listed company in Changsha with stable benefits. By then, my wife was already working as a fire safety engineer and her income had improved. We started saving money and even put a small amount into investments. But at the time, buying property was still seen by most people as the safest way to preserve and hopefully grow wealth. More importantly, we began thinking about our children's education. The schools assigned to our first apartment weren't bad overall, but one of them was notably weak. Due to Changsha's computerized school assignment system, often called micro lottery, there was a real risk our kids could be randomly placed in that underperforming school. Even the better schools weren't close enough. Daily commutes would still be a hassle for young kids. So after careful consideration, we decided to buy a second apartment, this one in a better school district. The new place came with a key advantage. It was zoned for direct enrollment at the nearby elementary school, bypassing Changsha's micro-lottery system entirely. Even better, the school was just about 1 kilometer away, close enough for our kids to walk or bike someday. To be honest, the school isn't among the city's top tier. In fact, it's probably slightly less prestigious than the best options tied to our first apartment. But given the lottery risk and the long commutes, we value the certainty and the convenience over chasing a higher ranking. As mentioned in my paid video, the total price was 1.5 million RMB, with an initial monthly mortgage of about 6,000 RMB. The pressure returned instantly. Even for the down payment, we borrowed roughly half, about 300,000 RMB. So from 2020 to 2024, we were paying both the mortgage and repaying the borrowed down payment. The financial strain was undeniable. In 2021, I made a foreign decision. I restarted my English studies and landed a job at a foreign invested enterprise. My income improved significantly. Later, I was laid off. It took a real effort to find a new role, but I eventually secured my current position at another foreign company, where I remain today.
送别的诗人是什么的？是哪个朝代的？
是唐朝的王之涣。
杨柳东风树，青青加日和这一句，写出了当时诗境是怎样的？
田径。
This is our current home, and very likely the one we'll live in for the rest of our lives. It's a 123 square meters, modest by Changsha standards, but more than enough for our family of four. I asked my younger son, "Do you like living here better than before?" He said yes, At least
好
I
了，
have
晚
my
安
own
了。
room now. I asked my older son, "What about you?" He also said yes. My school is really close, and I've made more friends here. Now I get to play badminton with them every week. Then I asked my wife, "And you?" She smiled and said, "The space is a bit bigger, and we finally have a storage room, so things don't feel so cluttered anymore." As for me, seeing them all happier makes me happy. Of course, having a dedicated study room where I can work remotely is a real practical benefit too. Now, whenever I have free time, I cook at home. Every Sunday, we clean the house together as a family. Life feels more stable. I don't have grand ambitions, but I find a deep satisfaction in the small everyday things. Preparing dinner, helping the kids with their
然
English or
后
Chinese
生病的，
homework,
再
watching
来一
them
遍。
grow up healthy and kind. To me, that's what true peace and happiness looks like. If you'd like to see more our neighborhood, the building, and inside our apartment, including the layout, furniture, and how we've organized everything, please check out my previous video, Typical Chinese Family Apartment Tour. And if you've ever wondered why we wear jackets indoors, even at home, that's not for the camera, it's just how winter works here. I made a whole video about it, why jackets indoors. Want to keep learning about everyday life for ordinary families in China? Consider subscribing. It really helps. We've also just launched the channel memberships. If you'd like to support the channel in a deeper way, or if you'd like to show some extra love right now, super thanks on this video means a lot. No matter how you choose to support, or if you are just here to watch, thank you for being part of this community. I'll keep sharing our real story exactly as it is, with honesty and care. See you next time.